Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of The Gunman. So on request from a viewer of mine, I've decided to do a bit of a tribute video to my grandfather. You'll see him on screen there, standing next to the 1950 Riley convertible that he fully restored at the age of 76 years old. So his name was Terence Eugene Kerrigan. He was born in 1930 and he died in 2010. So he made it to 80 years old. This is another one of the cars that he restored. He restored this one here in his driveway in Hawthorn, Selborne Street in Hawthorn. It was on an incline of about that, probably around a 25-30 degree angle. People were saying to him that he was crazy, but his reasoning behind it was, well, the car was never designed to only drive on a flat surface, so if it's right on an angle, well then it should be right on a flat surface. I actually helped him do a lot of the panel work on it. I helped him unpick the welds. The entire back end of that car was cut and shut on a 25-30 degree incline. He was a great man with a very big heart. He loved a beer, he loved a yarn, he loved a good joke. I went to Bathurst with him in 2005. We drove all the way across, from Melbourne up to Bathurst, and we went on a little bit more of a tour around outback New South Wales. We went up to Cobar and some of the places that he went when he was a younger man. He used to have an old bus and they'd drive around and do family trips. So there was a movie made about my grandfather. I think it was late 90s, 96 or 7 or something like that. It was called The Castle, or The Castle, however you want to pronounce it. A bit of an Australian cult classic film. Low budget film, but it had a great storyline to it. So it was loosely based around him, although a lot of the particulars weren't 100% accurate. So in the movie, there was 4 boys and one girl. In reality, he had 3 girls and 1 boy. And the storyline went that they had a house next to a airport and they had to get it closed down to expand the airport or something like that. That was not actually real. Although I think it was Dale Kerrigan in the movie and Terry Kerrigan was his real name. They did actually use his towing photos in the pool room. There was a few like classic Australian lines, straight to the pool room. When I was a young boy, we used to go up to my grandfather's place in Selborne Street in Hawthorn, and he did have the pool room and all his treasured items were in there. I still remember he had a World War One or World War Two gas siren, and it was like a wooden piece of equipment type thing, and he'd just hurl that thing around, and I tell you what, it was so loud. Like the movie was definitely made about him, although they made it into a movie, I guess. Originally, how it went was he said when he heard about the movie being made, he wanted to sue them because they're using his name and all that. And he said after seeing it, he couldn't bring himself to doing it. He said, I loved it so much that I wanted to give them material for a follow-up movie called The Panel Shop. That never ended up happening, unfortunately, but I ended up making The Gunman, so I guess that's probably as good as it's going to get. So I think that he would be very proud of what I've done online, although unfortunately he has passed away now, so he's not around to see it. So I've decided to just share a few classic photos of him and his family. And yeah, they were always getting out there amongst it, doing camping trips, and yeah, he's a guy with a heart of gold. But so many stories. I lived in one of his old buses for about 3 years out the front of one of his workshops. And just about every single night I'd go in, have a few beers with him and listen to some of his yarns, have a few jokes with him and smoke cigarettes and just have a good time. We'd also do a lot of projects, car projects, and I restored one of my old Tiranas, which I've still got. By this time it's actually in need of another restoration, but I learnt a lot of just basic general working skills off him, and I think I would actually thank a lot of my work ethic to people like him, also my father and my uncle. One of those first images that you did see was a photo of me, my uncle, and my grandfather Great man. And yeah, what else can I say about him? I think, look, I could probably go on for hours about him, but I think I've covered most of it. Yeah, this, as I said, this video was sort of made on request of a subscriber when I made a mention to, my grandfather being Terry Kerrigan. So I just thought I'd make somewhat of an off-the-cuff video with a bit of a slideshow. That's him on screen there. He was an Irishman, technically born in Australia to both Irish parents. I actually share a 50% Irish bloodline, thanks to him, and I'm proud of my heritage. So he grew up during the Great Depression. I used to tell all the stories of walking to school, in the snow and rain for however many kilometers with no shoes. He wasn't even allowed to put his shoes on until he got to school because he only had one nice pair of shoes. So he definitely knew the value of a dollar. He was very inventive, come up with some great ideas, little things to save a dollar. And I believe he started his career working on the railroads in Melbourne. And then it must have been around the 50s or 60s, he did end up starting up his own panel shop and towing business. So that's probably one of the big parts that came through to the castle, was the fact that they were, towies. And yeah, some of the stories he told about back in the day of how ruthless it was in the towing industry. He used to have like 6 or 7 tow trucks, like big bruiser type guys with baseball bats and shotguns, rocking up to accidents and just muscling your way in so that you got the job, you got the tow, and then you would be able to do the repair on the car. There was certain people that were even spotters on high accident intersections, and they'd get, say, $50 or whatever it be to call up the towies and make sure that they get there first. So it got a bit out of hand in the towing scene, probably in the 70s or 80s in Melbourne. So they ended up actually bringing in some laws about zoning, and then you needed licenses. So to stop all that kind of, sort of Irish mafia that was involved in the tow truck scene. So then every accident was zoned, and then you would actually have to be allocated that job. So no one can just rock up to an accident anymore unless you've been allocated that job. Obviously, there's probably a few more legalities involved in it, but it cleaned up the entire scene quite a lot. But yeah, some great stories there, and hope you're doing well up there. Old Tex, Terry Eugene Kerrigan. Tex was one of his nicknames. He died in 2010, as I mentioned before, and there was in excess of 80 people at his wake. And don't forget that most of his friends had already passed away. So that was testament to him. And that's about it, all I'd like to say. Thanks for listening. Share some of your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Gammon out.